Good morning, UUCC. How you doing out there? Great. My name's John Bacon. My pronoun associate of this congregation, the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Cleveland. The name Ohio comes from the Onondaga Seneca term meaning beautiful river. We are gathering on the original lands of the Erie, the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and many other peoples. We recognize the need to care for the land we inhabit and show respect to the diverse peoples who came here before us. Our developing relationship with the Lake Erie Native American Council is a partial recognition of that need. Welcome. Our congregation is a tapestry of diverse origins, beliefs, and backgrounds, each thread adding richness to our shared experience. We're committed to inclusivity, you know, the I in DEI, welcoming all who seek community and spiritual growth. We gather here for a multitude of reasons: to find community, to seek spiritual and personal truths, to question, to nurture heart and soul, to be nurtured, to explore new ideas, to find comfort, and perhaps to find the answers to some of our more significant questions. Our congregation is where diverse needs are met and where diverse journeys are embraced. Our doors are open wide. We are ready to embrace you and comfort with connection, challenge, and love. We want to emphasize that no matter who you are, where you're from, or whom you love, you will find open arms here. Our congregation is a place of open arms and open hearts, inviting you to share in our community and our faith journey. We especially welcome guests who are worshiping with us for the first time, either physically or join us online. If you want more information on who we are, we invite you to fill out one of the guest cards in the pew rack before you. You will note that we're totally up to date on technology with the QR code in the back if you'd rather do it online. In addition, you can place it in the offering plate when it comes around. Visit our website, uucleveland.org, as well. And we're about to enter into sacred space, so please take a moment to silence your phones, put your watches on theater mode, and silence any other devices that you've got. Now we ready to light our chalice, so follow along on the covenant on the yellow card. Today, we have Nick as our chalice lighter. Welcome, Nick. Our covenant. We cultivate trust with one another by celebrating differences, honoring boundaries, and offering compassion and care. We listen to each other deeply with curiosity and wonder. We speak for ourselves without need to defend ourselves or persuade each other. We create safe and brave space for healthy conflict, creativity, and fun. We reconcile through forgiving and making amends when we hurt one another.
We had a very stubborn candle this morning. Good morning. I'm the Reverend Randy Partain. My pronouns are they, them, and I am delighted to be with you in worship today. I do want to mention that if you looked at the email that you got this morning, it suggested that there was a meal after the service. That was just to let you know what you missed last week. There's not a potluck, and Harry's Kitchen Crew is not providing anything after the service today. And if you want to have conversations with people about the questions that were there, feel free to do that. But that was last week, so that's something that's not going to happen. Hear these words from the Reverend Darcey Laine. listen. If we listen, we may hear the joys of the people around us, of our community. We may hear sorrow in a voice that breaks. We may hear a laugh hiding behind words. If we listen, we may hear around us. We may hear the creatures with whom we share these grounds. We may hear the engine hum of airplanes or cars, of strangers and neighbors. We may hear the whistle of wind, the tumbling of leaves. If we listen, we may hear the sounds of the company of people. We may hear the coughing and the sniffling of seasonal colds. We may hear the breathing of those nearby. We may hear the sigh of somebody letting go. We may hear the wiggle of the restlessness of sitting, the shuffle of paper and purse and hymnal. If we listen, we may hear ourselves. We may hear our own joy and laughter and sorrow. We may hear our own humming and tumbling. We may hear our own breathing. We may hear our own longing. Listen. And so rather than just hear Darcey Laine's words, I invite us to enter into our space by listening to our own breath. If you're willing, I invite you to place your hands over your ears and just breathe slowly and deeply, and maybe vocalize your breath. Maybe something like an inhale, or whatever that is for you. Closing your eyes might help. Now uncover your ears and continue breathing audibly. Maybe hearing some of the audible breathing around you. And now imagine a sound like rain hitting the pavement, or leaves rustling in the wind, or a bird chirping. Imagine a sound and make that sound. Out loud. Make that sound out loud. And now, listening to the sounds around you, echo something that you hear from the space around you. And as you're willing and able, I invite you to rise in body or spirit as we sing together Breaths. It is hymn number 1001 in the teal hymnal. Listen more often to things than to beings. Listen more often to things than to beings. 'Tis the ancestor's breath when the fire's voice is heard. 'Tis the ancestor's breath in the voice of the waters. Those who have died have never, never left. The dead are not under the earth. They are in the rustling trees. They are in the groaning woods. They are in the crying grass. They are in the moaning rocks. The dead are not under Listen more often to things than to beings. 'Tis the ancestor's breath when the fire's voice is heard. 'Tis the ancestor's breath in the voice of the waters. Those who have died have never, never left. The dead have a pact with the living. They are in the woman's breast. They are in the wailing child. They are with us in our homes. They are with us in this crowd. The dead have a pact with the living. So listen more often to things than to beings. Listen more often to things than to beings. 'Tis the ancestor's breath when the fire's voice is heard. 'Tis the ancestor's breath in the voice of the waters. Let's take a moment and greet one another and welcome one another into this space of worship. You will have opportunities to continue hearing one another after the service and maybe even in the service today. For this moment, I invite us to come back together as we consider all that we bring with us into this space. If you're online and joining us today, I invite you to put any joys or concerns that you would like the congregation to know about in the comments. If you're here in person, we have a book where people are able to write down any joys or concerns that they want to lift up. We do have a memorial garden celebration for Ida C. Jones on Saturday, October 26th at 1 p.m. If you are connected in some way with Ida Jones and her family, you are invited to be present for that celebration of Ida's life. And just a stone to acknowledge the anxieties of our times. We bring a lot into this space with us. Maybe we don't even know it. Maybe we feel it in our bodies deeply. But may we have a sense of care for one another as we bring into this space all of the anxieties of the world that we carry with us. What else would you like to acknowledge today? I invite you to come forward and place a stone in the water for any joys or concerns you would like to make note of. And if you are remaining seated, I invite you to just offer care and love for those who are coming forward today. We place a stone for those joys or concerns shared online today. And we remember that each of these stones has a story. And some of these stories are a delight to listen to. And some of these stories are hard to listen to. And we put them in a container to represent what we hope this community is, a safe place for all of those stories to land. We have a bowl up here that somebody else made, but we are the ones that make the safe container of our community so that all of our joys and concerns might be shared vulnerably and have a safe place to land. So may we take that commitment to one another seriously in this space today and throughout our week as we gather together to be spiritual community with one another. Amen.
The Cleveland Rape Crisis Center supports survivors of rape and sexual abuse, promotes healing and prevention, and advocates for social change. The Cleveland Rape Crisis Center is an organization we have an ongoing support relationship with. We collect for it several times during the year through our offering plate. Before the 1970s, most people who had suffered sexual abuse suffered in silence. The feelings of guilt, shame, and fear kept those women, children, and men from speaking out about, much less reporting, their assaults. Only in recent years has the silence been broken, in part by their outrage and refusal to accept misplaced blame, and in part by their knowledge of that others will be there to support them. Over the years, the Cleveland Rape Crisis Center has grown from a grassroots volunteer organization to an organization, a nonprofit that has over 80 employees providing counseling services, victim assistance in the justice system, 24-hour services to the survivors of rape and sexual abuse in Cuyahoga, Geauga, Lake, Ashtabula counties. One survivor, Stacy, recalls her experience with her counselors and legal advocates almost 20 years after her abuse. She testified they supported her and went through her experience with complete support and no discouragement. Her counselors helped her overcome her trauma, where regular therapy had failed for 20 years. Please place your offering, cash or check, made payable to UUCC in the collection plate as it's passed. You may also contribute via Cash App to $UUCC 44122. Use the memo line to indicate today's date and our plate recipient, Cleveland Rape Crisis Center. Please give generously within your means. Thank you. Here's a reading from the Reverend Dr. Sandra Fees. Here's where Unitarian Universalists sometimes get off track. Sometimes you mistake the focus on listening to self with a fierce individualism and independence. The worth and dignity of every person, every self, sometimes gets used to prioritize one individual without equal concern for relationships and community. But listening to self actually turns out to be inseparable from listening to others. Just as honoring each person's worth and dignity is inseparable from honoring the interconnection of all people. So the attentiveness to self is inextricably related to attentiveness to the other in a greater wholeness. As Dag Hammarskjöld once said, the more faithfully you listen to the voice within you, the better you will hear what is sounding outside. The ancient Hindu philosophy of Vedanta offers an interesting and helpful perspective. The Vedanta philosophy includes two interrelated concepts of self. One is the individual self, and the other is the universal self. That individual self is our memories, desires, emotions, thoughts, and experiences. The universal self is an awareness of belonging not to one's own body and mind. It doesn't see the universe as different from oneself. Instead, this universal self is unchanging, a consciousness which underlies everything. So the universal self identifies itself with everything in the universe. Ultimately, deep listening connects to the spirit in all of us, each other in the universe and other beings. We are called to be faithful to our inner lives so that we can be faithful to the outer world as well.
When we are listening well to ourselves, we can listen well to others. Something that we might not always be good at. This month we are decorating a listening stick as a way of symbolizing when we feel like we have been deeply heard. A talking stick is something that lots and lots of human cultures have evolved. I don't know why we have thought that if we hold up a stick that somebody's going to listen to us, but maybe over and across cultures we have just picked up on that. But this is not a talking stick. This isn't a stick that you hold on to when you want to be heard. This is a way that we are symbolizing how our community has listened well, or how you have been heard deeply over the course of the month. So it's been in different places each week. It'll be in the narthex after the service today with ribbons, carefully and lovingly selected by Debbie Keem for us to use on our listening stick. So if you want to make your way out of the sanctuary and decorate the listening stick after the service, it'll be in the narthex for you. Looks like we've done a little bit of good listening, but we're going to practice more now. And if you're at home and you've got people around in your house, you might just pull them in for this piece of things. Or you might, if you're listening after the fact or participating on Tuesday morning or something, you might hit pause and go find somebody that you want to have a bit of a brief conversation with. But I'm going to ask you to find a partner to pair up for this exercise. And then, get comfortable, relax, warmly look at each other. I know this is challenging in the pews, but do your best and find a partner And one person is going to speak first. I know some of you are still debating whether you're going to find a partner. It's okay. This is an invitation, not an obligation. But if you want to find a partner while I continue to tell you what you're going to be doing, that'll be okay. One person is going to speak first for a couple of minutes, and the other person is just going to listen without interrupting. You don't have to affirm, you don't have to agree, you don't have to tell how you have experienced this. All you're doing is listening. And you can choose a question. I'll give you some possibilities. If you're you renegades and you just want to have your own question, that's fine. But both of you should answer the same question. Here are some possibilities. What do I most deeply and profoundly love? That's one thing that your pair might answer. Or you might answer, what's really concerning me at the moment? You might answer that question. Or if those feel a little too personal, you might answer a question like, what is the deepest and most profound purpose UUCC ought to have? Something like that. So one of those three. What do I most deeply and profoundly love? What's really concerning me at the moment? Or what should our congregation have as a most deep and profound purpose? You're only answering one of those. You just got a couple of minutes. And you'll both be answering the same question. So once your pair is, you may want to clarify now what your question is going to be. And once you're clear on who's going to speak first, just take a moment and think about your answer so that you're not thinking about it while you're listening. Do you have your question? Okay, it seems like you probably have your question in mind because some of you sound like you're answering it already. Once you have your question, person one can speak, and person two is just going to listen. I knew this was going to be trouble with a bunch of Unitarian Universalists, but I'll tell you when it's time to switch. If you have been speaking, wrap up what you are sharing and then switch. So if you've been speaking, you're just going to listen, and person number two is going to answer the same question. So go ahead and switch roles now. Okay, now person number 2 can wrap up what you're sharing. I know that wasn't very long to share about something that you deeply and profoundly love. All right, so how was that for you? I see people waving at me. They're wanting to let me know that they're with me. I appreciate that. How was that for you? Do you have a good reason to tie a ribbon on a stick now? It might be difficult to just listen. Did anybody find themselves getting distracted even during just a couple of minutes of listening to someone? Not that you're willing to admit. Okay. It's tough. It's tough to just listen. A lot of times we have a lot to say ourselves, and so we're thinking about what we want to say and not really attending to what somebody else is saying. Benjamin Mathis likes the way his friend Agape says it, though. Hear the biography, not the ideology. Hear the biography, not the ideology. When someone has a point of view that we find difficult to understand or disagreeable or even offensive, then we can look to the set of circumstances that that person has experienced that resulted in their point of view. That may not have been the case here in this room of people who are so very agreeable and don't have any ideas or opinions that would be offensive to anyone. But it's helpful to practice in a safe place like this so that we can get someone's story, someone's biography, and open up the real possibility of an understanding that transcends disagreement. When you find yourself in disagreement, this is what Benjamin Mathis says, you can ask, will you tell me your story? I'd love to know how you came to this point of view. Which makes me think that listening is really a practice of generosity. Generosity is one of the values that we've just affirmed as a Unitarian Universalist value. And what we say about generosity is that we cultivate a spirit of gratitude and hope, and we covenant to freely and compassionately share our faith, our presence, and our resources, because our generosity connects us to one another in relationships of interdependence and mutuality. Deep listening is a gift of presence that we offer to people. It's a practice of our spiritual values. And sometimes it takes work to refocus when we get distracted by things, or when somebody says a thing. I do this sometimes. Somebody says something and my brain just starts going off on a tangent about all of the different possibilities of that, whatever phrase or comment that they just made, my brain just wants to take off with it. And so I have to work to come back to being present with that person and to be able to listen deeply. We might not be used to listening deeply. It requires us to quiet our own minds, which makes deep listening almost kind of like a meditation in a way. But I also know that listening to someone feels threatening sometimes. Again, not necessarily in this place, but maybe even in this place. Listening to someone, deeply listening to them, might feel threatening sometimes. Other people say a lot of things, and we may feel a lot of things when we hear what other people say. But I want to offer that other people are just providing information to us. The things that they say inform us about how they see the world, how they've interpreted their experience. And this information is about them. If I'm sharing something, I'm sharing information about me. The information isn't about us, even if somebody else is telling us what they want us to do or what they think we ought to do or what we ought to believe. The information is really about them, and we can choose what we want to do with that. Information doesn't have to be unsafe. So we might ask ourselves, if we feel threatened by just the information that someone is telling us about their view of the world, their perspective, we might ask ourselves, am I physically safe right now? And is it okay for me to just listen? It's a spiritual practice, deep listening. It requires that we recenter ourselves and recalibrate even maybe recalibrate a sense of what safety means when we're just getting information from another person. Valerie Cower was just in town with her Revolutionary Love tour. I was in another state when she was in this state, but maybe some of you got to see Valerie Cower. We spent the summer looking at her book about revolutionary love a couple of summers ago. But here's what she says about deep listening. Deep listening is an act of surrender because we risk being changed by what we hear from another person. Empathy is both cognitive and emotional. Empathy for what another person is saying requires us to have harmony between our thoughts and our feelings. To inhabit another person's view of the world is like feeling the world with them. And also knowing that it's okay if we don't feel very much for them at all. We just need to feel safe enough to stay curious. The most critical part of listening is asking what's at stake for the other person. Try to understand what matters to them, not what we think ought to matter. And in that act of deep listening, we live our values as Unitarian Universalists. We are a spiritual community. I know, that may be news to some of you. We are a spiritual community. And that means that we are creating something countercultural. That's what spiritual communities do. We create something that is countercultural. And if you haven't noticed, our society is very noisy. And it invites us to be noisy. It's like the loudest person is going to win something. I don't know what. Deeply listening to someone is radical. And sometimes being heard is exactly what somebody needs so that they know that they are accepted and worthy and loved. And just feeling heard can help someone de-escalate and regulate themselves. It seems simple. Just listen, right? But it takes a lot of work. So the invitation is to extend this exercise that we did here just for a couple of minutes later on this week. You could do the other one too, where you just hear things in the environment and just mimic them. That's also a way to kind of get yourself oriented in yourself and the bigger self that we're a part of. But hopefully you'll have an opportunity to listen deeply to someone else. It might not be mutual, and maybe if you're working on listening, that's okay. If you're the kind of person that is always listening to other people, though, you might seek someone out and say, I would like to share something with you, and I just want you to listen for a few minutes. I don't need you to affirm it. I don't need you to fix anything. I don't need you to solve anything. I don't need you to provide guidance. All I'm really asking for is for you to just listen and see if you have someone that's willing to do that. You might have to prep them. We're not used to doing this, so give them a context. And maybe even set a timer. I know it sounds silly, but deeply listening to somebody for an hour, not easy. Deeply listening to somebody for 5 minutes, maybe easier. So if you're working on this as a spiritual practice, it's just like any other kind of meditation. You're not going to sit for meditation for an hour the first time you start meditating, I hope. I don't know. Maybe you're one of those people. But maybe you spend a few moments in stillness when you start meditating. This is the same thing. You spend a few moments deeply listening. And if you really, really, really want an opportunity and you don't know how you're going to make an opportunity, the Racial Justice Leadership Team is having this activity, this one-on-one kind of deep listening activity on Thursday evening in the fellowship hall at 7:15. So if you want somebody to set the stage for you and just create the opportunity, the Racial Justice Leadership Team is doing that in collaboration with another one of our covenant groups Thursday evening. Especially if we are not accustomed to listening, it can seem like a lot of work. And it might be a lot of work for us to recenter and remind ourselves that we have a sense of safety, even when we are listening to things that we don't like to hear. It is a spiritual practice, though, like a meditation. And it is powerful medicine. So may we take this invitation to listen deeply to heart and recognize it as a force that can transform the world around us and create connection where it might otherwise seem impossible. May we be so bold. I invite you to rise, embody your spirit as we listen to one another, but also offer our own voices to Let Love Continue Long. It is hymn number 129 in the gray hymnal. Continue long and show to us the way, and if that love be strong, no hurt can have us say, and if that love remain but strong, no hurt can ever have us say. If love cannot be found, though common faith prevails, when love does not abound, a common faith will fail. When human love does not abound, a common faith will always fail. If we in love unite, debate can cause no strife, for with this love inside, disputes enrich our life. For with this bond of human love, disputes can mean a richer life. May love continue long and lead us on our way. If that love be strong, no hurt can have us say. For if that love remain but strong, no hurt can ever have us say. You know, Nick, it took a minute to get this thing lit, but once we got it lit, it's going pretty well. I wonder if listening to people is sometimes like that we have to give them a little bit of space so that they can share with us what they have to share. I do want to let you know about a couple of things coming up. First of all, our website. It's not a website problem. It's a different kind of problem. But please be patient as we continue working on that connectivity. If you're on, apparently if it's AT&T or one of their related folks, there's some kind of issue connecting to our website. But we're troubleshooting and figuring out what we need to do in order to make sure everybody can have access. If you're here in the building, you're just fine. But different providers are having some challenges. So please be patient as we figure out exactly what is happening there. And maybe it'll just sort itself out before we figure it out, which will also be just fine by me. We do have a Considering Membership session next Sunday, and it's helpful for us to know if you are planning on attending that. So if you could sign up, there's a sign up in the newsletter, but also if you leave by this east entrance area, there are some pink papers with QR codes. Again, we are so high-tech these days. With the QR code on it, you can sign up through that if you are considering membership and would like to know more about our congregation or Unitarian Universalism in general. That'll be next Sunday evening. We also have our auction coming up on Saturday, November 16th. You can donate items or services via the paper insert that's in your orders of worship today, if you like paper stuff. You can also email Sharon Edmond or our auction team, which I think has the unbelievable email address of auctionteam@uucleveland.org. So, hard to remember, I know, but let us know if there's something that you would like to donate to that auction that is coming up. And plan to attend. Put it on your calendar. The other thing to put on your calendar is November 9th, the Saturday before that. We're going to be doing some lasagna mulching. There's a space where we are going to be putting a pollinator garden in. And if you don't know what lasagna mulching is, it's where you lay down cardboard and then topsoil and then mulch in preparation for planting stuff. So save your cardboard over the next couple of weeks, especially if you've got big pieces. That will be very, very helpful. And I'll let you know more about the details for that event. But I want to let you know today, save your cardboard, because that's coming up. There's lots of other things happening. Please do check your newsletter and see what might engage you. There are lots of things going on this fall, and I know it's too much for any one person to do, but hopefully there is something there that will inspire you and give you opportunities to connect. And if you're online, please do like, share, subscribe if you have found this service meaningful and given you some inspiration. That is the way that we continue our ministry online for folks who are not able to be here in person. For now, Holy Wind, breathe in us the breath of peace. Holy Earth, hold us in the trust of groundedness. Holy waters, flow rivers of hope and freedom from fear. And holy fire, kindle in us a light of love. Amen, and blessed be. You want to extinguish the chalice, Nick?
Please join me in the words for extinguishing the chalice on the backside of the yellow card. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.